U.S. History B, Virtual Interactive Notebook 5, Day 5, President Bush. Your essential question for today. Why was the first Gulf War fought? The main idea is Bush, and the subtopics are Read My Lips, yeah, and First Gulf War. Today's notes are based on Chapter 31, Section 3. We know that Ronald Reagan just about tripled the national debt. When he was done being president in 1988, President Bush, Reagan's vice president, was elected. President Bush had to deal with this tripling of the national debt. And also, probably due to the business cycle. The business cycle means that times are good and times are bad, and times are good and times are bad. And it doesn't seem to matter who's president. The economy goes like this, right? So the economy took a downturn during President Bush's administration. And whether or not that was his fault is too complex a topic to cover here. I personally tend to think that the president doesn't matter so much because you can see Republican or Democrat, the business cycle does this. It just does this. But that's my personal view. All right. Anyway, President Bush was pressured by the American people to do something about the national debt. Now, how can you pay down the national debt? You can do one of two things, or you can do both of them. You can raise taxes, take more money from people, and pay down the debt that way. Or you can cut government spending. Or you can do both. So when he was running for president, Vice President Bush said, read my lips, no new taxes. And then he became president, and he cut a deal with Congress that cut spending and raised taxes. So he got a lot of pressure from people because he said he wouldn't raise taxes, but he did. Well, did he create new taxes? So that's the thing. So in principle, people thought he was talking about, I'm not going to raise your taxes. But he did raise taxes to help pay down the debt. All right, so under read my lips, I want you to write, said he wouldn't raise taxes, then raise taxes to pay down debt. Said he wouldn't raise taxes, then raise taxes to pay down debt. And that's really going to cost him the election in 1992. Now, the second thing, again, way more than this happened. He signed a nuclear arms treaty, which was good, and other stuff happened. But this is an abbreviated history course. So the second thing that we're going to talk about is the Gulf War. Now, I've included a video, and what I want you to do is write two things for the Gulf War, first Gulf War. We're going to go to a war with Iraq twice. This is the first time. Why did the Gulf War happen, and what happened in the Gulf War? So tell me why the first Gulf War was fought and what happened in the Gulf War. All right? And I'm going to leave that to you. Now for your output, I'm going to read this to you. Suppose that President Bush had not raised taxes, but had cut spending. If you had to decide which spending to cut, which would you select and why? Answer in at least 3 sentences. So there are really 5 big spending items that the federal government spends on. First is the military. Second is Social Security, which is the government sending checks to people who are retired and people who are disabled. Third is Medicare and Medicaid. This is the federal government providing free health care to people who are retired and people who are disabled. Infrastructure spending, which means roads, bridges, railroads, airports, etc., the stuff that we all use to make our economy work. And finally, welfare. That would be, it could be money for poor people, housing for poor people, food for poor people, etc. Okay? So which of those would you cut if you had to cut federal spending? And I just want you to see why this was so tough. It's tough to cut spending because what do you cut? All right? And that's your output for today. I will see you tomorrow for day 6, which will be President Clinton.